This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about why we all are bits and pieces of other people knowledge and experience. We acquire knowledge by learning directly from books and from whatever source that we pay attention, we intentionally and consciously pay attention, focus on it. But and uh, we also learn a lot just by being alive. And by learning, I do not mean that what we learn is always good, because much of our experience is being influenced by being manipulated, uh, and we should be aware of that. So we live in societies that try, especially because of the capitalist values, the liberal values, liberal capitalist values. We give a lot. We emphasize the relevance of the individual, which I also share, that as individuals we need to enjoy a lot of as much freedom as possible, and but by freedom is not just about, it's about real freedom. Freedom has always to do with agency. Though it doesn't matter that we have freedom in law, but in the reality we do not have much freedom, because how our societies and our economies are organized, that supposed freedom is not really as is much less than we really believe. We have notions and convictions about the human condition and ourselves, that in spite of all knowledge available, they are pretty inaccurate. We exist as individual, but to make sense of ourselves as social beings, and that can never be different unless we become programmable by becoming transhumanist species. Otherwise, that's it. That's how it's going to work for us as a species that lives on this, that is part of the planet Earth. The reason why I also emphasize the relevance of equality, there is this notion. Don't we need to recognize, or should we not recognize, that there are differences between people, and that those differences, there is also that some people are more influential because they have more they have careers in certain fields, so they are part of a elite that is more, that for whatever reason has acquired more knowledge and become an expert in whatever field. So, but should we see them, perceive them as authorities to guide us? Because the problem I have with that is that following, the condition of a follower, to me, should not exist. Because we need to admire people. We need to have admiration. Admiration is not veneration, okay? The admiration is normal, because we should recognize the value of people. But we should recognize the value of people across the board, which means that not only the professions, activities, or roles and functions in societies, or certain are more important and more valuable than others. And I honestly think this is a problem, and this is unnecessary, because we can admire people and value their work individually or collectively, as a group, because we delegate our responsibility on them, authorities, gurus, saviors, heroes, leaders, all sorts of supposedly people with superior skills or intelligence, talents, or whatever, and so they know better than us. They are the ones that can save us from whatever kind of problem, and that is that's a way to lose agency, and it does, and we believe that we need to be led, but we don't need to be led. We need as a society, you need to be organized, and we might need to have some sort of hierarchy. So, but that doesn't mean that we allow the ones that have the responsibility for a certain function, and that's why we always talk about the government as the politicians. They have a mandate to represent us, so they should not do what they please, because they are representing us. But the reason why they respect us, and we cannot trust them, it's because we delegate on them the powers that they should not have. Because the question is always about power, and of course we are powerless if we do not have agency. And part of the problem is exactly because we believe that in the existence of people that because they know better, they have they are, because power is relational. And if we believe, if we already assume that we do not question that our relation, the social relations, are established under under a hierarchy of power, we already admit that we have less power, because the value of what we know of who we are is less important, or can be dismissed, because our role in society is less important, is less relevant. Therefore, we might be disposable, and that is not how we organize a sane society. Because we are a part of a system. A society is a system. Because we assume that is the reality, or this reality is normal, is natural. There's nothing natural about it. What is the only thing that is natural is the ability of human beings to build artificial systems that we call societies, because they are cultural. They have a natural base, which but the natural base is the physical. You build a society is like any other species that builds a nest or builds a complex system, like the ants do, or other animals. That's the part that we need a society, because we are social beings. Therefore, we live in groups. We form communities or tribes or societies or nations. It depends on how big they are, how complex they are, and all of that. But the rest, the software, the part that has to do with what kind of principles and values we assume as natural, like gender roles. I do believe that there are certain gender roles that might be that derive from the natural conditions of the difference between male and female, but the rest, the epigenetic, that the episocial that has been built on it, is a construction, and is always about relations of power. And that power, that relations of power, then are transformed into a tradition. They are become part of the culture, and they are transmitted from generation to generation. So, and what is really natural, that's the title of this monologue, is that we are, what we really are is bits and pieces of other people's experiences, or knowledge and experience. So even the ones that we believe or that we assume as superior than us. That's what they are. They just have the opportunity to become experts in their fields. So we can admire them, but we should not see them as authorities, because there are always flaws in all of us. It doesn't matter how sophisticated we are intellectually or whatever. We as human beings, that's another feature of our condition. We are always flawed. That's why we are constantly evolving. Our ideas change, which means that as how we acquire new knowledge and enjoy, or have, we don't not necessarily enjoy, but we go through new experiences, we change the perception how we see the world. But the problem with this is because we most of the time believe that's everything that happens is individual, is just from our will, as if we live as if our lives happens in the social void, in social, cultural, economic and political void, which is not true. Even for those that live quite away from, that don't live in big cities, or that are not involved in the, that influenced by the by what goes on in the big cities, which is propaganda everywhere, you know. But it is everywhere, nevertheless. So we should be aware that whatever we make sense, we only make sense of it because we are social beings, not because we are individuals. We are individuals because our existence is as individual organisms. But we can only make sense of things because of the characteristic that we all share as a social species. And that is, and that should be always present, in order that we can understand why that we as individuals have much less control over what we learn, how we learn, why we behave the certain ways, what we believe and why we believe it. We have much less control over it than we pretend. And that is something we should reflect upon. We need to have a more holistic understand of the human condition, the world, civilization, society, and everything. Because what I find is that we see, we perceive and observe and analyze reality fragmented. We all know that the reality is presented to us in a very fragmented and disconnected way. And we and and of course we make sense of the problems, and we tend to blame or scapegoat into certain groups or specific people, and we just don't see the systemic roots of the problems. You don't understand the relations. It's not because we are not able to understand them, but because we are conditioned to observe reality according to patterns, to identify patterns, and we usually do not go beyond it. And we need to have a much broader and comprehensive understanding of the problems, because most problems we see on the world, they are connected. They are not disconnected. They have an underlying systemic cause or several causes that we need to understand in order to move on, in order to have a critical analysis and be able to design, to create a new paradigm, a new civilizational paradigm where we can be, because the achievements, we can criticize capitalism, we can there is a lot to criticize about capitalism and the capitalist system and the imperialist civilization has been responsible for an immense destruction. And that is but on the other hand, we have created a civilization, a technological civilization, and we have advanced in scientific knowledge that could allow us, that could and should be used to create a civilization, a truly human civilization, not an imperialistic civilization, not a civilization based on technoscientism and technofixism, but a civilization based on the understanding of the human nature and condition, with our limits, with our flaws. And it would be, I call it ecological, holistic civilization, with an economy, with a social ecological, or social and ecological political economy, because that's how I perceive it. It can work. That is up to discussion, but of course, but that's how I see we could rehumanize us and get rid of these prejudices and complexes of so many prejudices about the human condition, and the complexes of inferiority and superiority that are really they do have such negative impacts in our behavior towards each other, in our relations with each other, and in our relations with the world, the environment, and how we perceive everything. And The commodification of everything through which we understand life, it's a very it just shows, how our lives became commodified. Just shows how much corrupted our societies are, and that's not by following saviors and heroes and leaders and authorities that we will get to the point we need to be, which is that we need to understand that we are all equals. Not because we are equals, but not because we need to be, not because we are copies of each other, but because as the principle of justice and trust, we need to be equals. Because can only be justice and trust if we can perceive each other as equals. Otherwise, how can we trust? We came to the point where we cannot trust anything and anybody. That's why I really, I mean, that's my point. The point is, if we do not do it, what's going to be the future of the human race? You mean techno-fascism and transhumanism? We don't want to think about the utopia of ecological holistic civilization with social and ecological political economy. Okay, you might say, okay, that's a topic, but we are prepared. We are mentally prepared. We are intellectually colonized, culturally colonized, and instrumentalized in ways that we are ready to accept techno-fascistic, transhumanist, it's still imperialistic civilization. The empire is not even the imagination of the new imperialists, the tech oligarchs, is not even that we need to colonize Mars. We need to expand the imperialism and colonialism outside the boundaries of Earth. Because why? Because it's not anymore enough. Earth is not enough. And we just accept it by its face value. I mean, we should be skeptic and perceive it as an absurdity. And you know what Voltaire said? Do you know the quote? Those that can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. Yeah, that's exactly like that. That's exactly like that. So, this is the time of monsters, This is the time where we need. We are going through a period in the human history where the common citizenry needs to rise. Needs to rise, not to serve, not to follow. Not to follow. but to be agents of history. But for that to happen, we need to identify that's our responsibility as regular citizens, as ordinary citizens, to search for the root causes of the problems. I know that's difficult because of our biases, because we are so much instrumentalized. I know it. I'm aware of all of that. I don't even expect it to happen, unfortunately. But that's the only way. Because how can people believe that Trump, or by the same token, Obama, or all these leaders? I mean, you just imagine. There was so much hope in Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is just another. I mean, I don't know if the man is flawed or is stupid, but it's just he keeps at that age talking the same bullshit. That is just empty rhetoric. So the movements, and now we need to organize. I need to develop class consciousness. And by class, I don't mean really working class. I mean lower class. Because we live in a society, at the lower class, you might not be a worker. You are a child, okay? Or you are a senior, an old person that we are not part of the working, not part of the working of the labor force, but we are still part of the lower class. And that consciousness about the class consciousness that is the systemic one of the problems that we follow. We always believe that we need experts, but you can ask me, okay, don't we need a surgeon? Don't we need the scientists? And yeah, we need them. But we do not need to take them as authorities. We don't need to believe that they are more than us. They have the opportunity to dedicate all their lives to one expertise. Therefore, they just are, if they perform well, it's their duty. And by the way, most of them are overpaid. And that's why they want a numerus clausus in many places, that they don't want too many people to be able to become doctors, because they don't like competition. It's the same with lawyers, and it's the same with other professions, that they want to have control over the numbers of people that become part of the profession, so therefore they can always have the power, because this is a question of power. But they don't want that power for us, and that's the problem with it. And that's the problem with a society, class-based society or caste-based society. And we need to deal with it. Because everybody knows that if we bury our heads in the sand, the problems don't go away. They tend to get worse over time. Some problems go away because they are minor problems. But the systemic ones, they do not go away like that. They persist, they get worse until the bubble bursts. And then we all are the ones that have to bear the burden. Yes, because we live in a class-based society. That's why it happens like that. So we need to change the lens through which we read and understand reality. That's the main point, or the takeaway point. That's it. That will be all for today. Thanks for listening. I will be back soon.